elderly woman at Walt Disney World.
Stop it.
People, I mean, this has been an ongoing problem at the Disney parks for a while. It's usually younger women getting handsy. There's multiple videos of this where the performer has to stop and immediately, like, just like, you're out of here.
Yeah, Gaston.
Yeah, Gaston's the biggest, and like, I think they might have like changed Gaston's like schedule or something, or to change his appearances, how they work, because it was like such a problem. Like every fucking millennial woman would grope Gaston. But this lady was like 65. And
hey, that's young, baby.
And her tastes are a little different than you millennial girls. Like, we didn't have Gaston when I was a little girl. What we had was Goofy.
She knows a big floppy cock when she sees one.
And
Gaston's penis is very small.
They took a whole family photo, like 3 generations in one picture, and Grandma just like grabbed a piece of Goofy ass.
Yeah.
And yeah, she had to go.
Well, they can't arrest her because she'll just fucking poop herself, just like Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah. Oh.
What do you want me to do?
I guess I'll get into your cop car with my pants full of shit. Guess you're probably gonna have to clean that up later.
You know, thinking back on it, Kid Rock is like well, I guess he's still alive, but our generation's Ted Nugent. If only there was a draft so Kid Rock could shit himself in order to avoid...
I would say Ted Nugent is a far worse human being than Kid Rock.
Yeah.
However, far more talented musically, like genuinely like kind of a virtuoso on the guitar, but also like literally an evil man and like a pedophile and a rapist.
Yeah, very, very bad guy. Family stricken with rare brain worms after eating undercooked bear.
Yeah, folks, when you're cooking bear, you gotta make sure the bear is done.
Brain worms, they're real and they're affecting everyone.
Yeah, this is crazy. It's like every single person at this, it's like someone, I guess they killed the bear. So I mean, if you're hunting,
putting it to use.
Yeah, most people that kill a bear don't eat fucking any of it. They're just doing it for the furs, which is kind of fucked up. I hear the meat's not that good, but at
least you're using it.
Yeah, they were cooking it in a certain way. I think they were making like shawarma out of it, and all of them, everyone there, like within days, had just like a litany of symptoms. And they're just like, oh, it must have been something to that bear. And like, yeah, they get tested and there's like these fucking like worms swimming around in their brain.
How do you fix that?
Just anti-parasitic medicine. Probably the like ivermectin.
Yeah. Sick. I think that would be a great evolution in our country's history, is that everyone who took ivermectin to cure COVID are the exact type of people who are actually going to get brain worms.
Yeah.
We thought they had brain worms.
Just let them
theoretically.
Take it. Let them just take the ivermectin.
Now they need it. Yeah. Well, or the brain worms are now used to it because they've been having it for so long for no reason that they've built up an immunity, and they can only infect the minds of ultra-conservatives.
Yeah, drug-resistant brain worms.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Postal worker caught racing Mustang in USPS van, hitting 105 miles per hour in a 60-mile-per-hour zone. I wouldn't have guessed that a postal van can even go that fast. This is kind of impressive. Yeah. Aside from being extremely dangerous and pointless, the fact that this postal, and in the past when postal workers went postal, that meant people were dead. People were shot up. In this case, the postal worker saw a Mustang driving really fast and was like, you know what?
Fuck it.
Let's go. I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
I think this is pretty funny. It was obviously very dangerous.
It was a young woman too. You don't expect someone driving this recklessly to be anything other than
the Mustang offended her honor.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you ever feel like racing a Mustang, don't.
Yeah.
Because you will be an accessory to murder. Because that Mustang is going to lose control.
Yeah.
And take a bunch of people out.
Well, everyone that drives one, they're not used to a rear-wheel drive V8 car. So usually, thankfully, once they're on the straightaway, it's not a big deal. When you really want to steer clear of Mustangs is when they're pulling out of parking lots.
Yeah, but that's when they gun it every time.
Right. But they gun it while the fucking front wheels are turned. And just immediately, like the physics does the rest.
Yep.
You're fucked. From the second you hit the gas, you're fucked. And it's always a delight to see. It's why Mustangs have been banned from like every Cars and Coffee club in the country.
You guys gotta stop. They're not gonna let us come to this Denny's anymore.
Ambulance collides with moose while responding to another moose collision.
We need an ambulance for the broken down ambulance for the moose incident.
Can you guess which country this was?
Canada?
That's right, yeah.
Those moose are big?
No, they're terrifying. Fucking I've never seen one in real life. At least, I might have seen one in like a zoo. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, even in videos, like most animals, you see videos of them and it's hard to like really get a sense of like the scale. But like every video I've seen of a moose, I'm like, this is a like mythical creature. Like humans killed off every like crazy large animal before we had a chance to see them, but somehow moose are still out there standing like 15 feet tall.
Yeah. It's because they own that forest.
Yeah.
Get out.
And they're all lanky and shit, and like they regularly fucking kill people.
Yeah. They're fucking huge.
Because they know they can.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like there was a moose incident on the highway up in northern Ontario, and the ambulance coming to treat the people of that accident. I don't know if it was the same moose or another moose, but they also hit a moose. It's even scarier if it's the same moose. Moose can survive 2 car accidents.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Canada problem.
Canada.
You wouldn't understand. It's a Canada thing.
Pittsburgh police candidates allowed to retake their psychological evaluations after dozens failed.
Oh, that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It is interesting, like, among the many, many problems with American policing that will take generations to solve, if ever, is the fact that it's very self-selecting. Everyone, like the people who should be cops are people who would never once consider it because of the connotations and the culture around it. People who should be enforcing the law are moral, upstanding people who have much better opportunities. Also intelligent, so they have much better opportunities. So the people who actually want to be cops, that's pretty much all they've got.
They are gravitating towards power.
Like, so you tell me I get to have a gun and I can kill anyone without any repercussions? So yeah, it sounds like over in Pittsburgh, they just had like a dozen Seth Rogens in Observe and Report like show up. And like after the first one, they're like, okay, well that guy's a fucking psycho. Next, like,
all these people are crazy.
Okay. And then the department's like, all right, where's our new squad of officers? And like, no, they're all fucking insane. They all have this like crazy, fucked up idea that they're like
in a war zone.
Yeah. We can't let these people be cops. I'm like, okay, well,
just remove that part.
Can we just like make the test a little easier? Let them retake it again. Maybe we'll coach them through it this time.
Yeah. Have them identify a clock.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, you can sleep soundly knowing that the best and brightest are out there serving and protecting.
Or something.
Up in smoke. Workers removed dozens of apparent marijuana plants from Wisconsin Capitol Tulip Garden.
This feels like something out of like the 60s or 70s.
I think it's funny. You just go spread some seeds around.
Yeah.
It'll grow. It's a literal weed.
Yeah. It won't be very useful.
No, but it'll grow and look like
weed that's just grown from scattered seeds. Like you're gonna have to grind up that entire plant to get like enough THC to get high.
The flower looks like it. Not the flower, but the leaves. Yeah.
It does look cooler. All of the weed you smoke, it's just a like bunch of fucking nuggets. Where's the cool leaves? I was told there would be cool leaves.
I thought you just chopped up one of those big cool leaves and rolled it up.
I mean, I think back in the day they did. They had pretty slim pickings back then. They were smoking just entire joints like cigarettes and getting a mild high.
One of our joints would kill those hippies.
Literally, that's why I stopped smoking weed for so many years.
I'm having a bad trip, man.
Yeah, just taking like the tiniest, like I'd get past a joint and just be like, okay, I'm just gonna go. And even then, like I'd be high for like hours. I'm like, this is fucking.
Let me out of here.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's cost effective. You just need a little bit.
But even then, like I'm saying, like even taking the tiniest puff, it's too much.
Yeah.
That's why I got into edibles. I can take like.
Yeah, they're perfectly measured.
I'm literally taking like medicinal doses of weed that are like.
Give me my 5 milligrams so I can go to sleep.
Literally, like 5 mils at the end of the day is good enough for me. Your average weed smoker wouldn't even be able to fucking feel that.
Yep.
Fuck the LAPD. Shirt makers' entire shop sold out after cops threatened him.
Yeah, they were trying to like say that that LAPD is trademarked and that they're gonna come after him for using that. No,
it's a cool logo. I would have guessed that the LA Lakers would have gone after him because the logo is like very clearly like the fucking Lakers logo. But yeah, the guy posted about it online and just like everyone's like, oh hey, cool shirt. I'm gonna go buy some of that. So great job, LAPD. Doing the classic Streisand effect.
It's like, and the same thing is like the Dodgers probably aren't going to go after whoever it is that's making the LA cab.
Yeah.
Those are, I see those all over the place.
I mean, that's the Dodgers logo in particular. Like every clothing store in the city has like essentially trademark infringed Dodger merch. Like every brewery has like the Dodgers, except they just change the word to whatever the brewery is.
Yep.
Maybe add change the baseball out for something else.
You know, smartly so far, the Dodgers have been like, this is going to be way more of a headache if we cause a fucking fuss.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
Plus, we got that Fanatics running our merch, and
we got $35 parking, and
we got this Fanatics merch that costs 10 cents to make. We're earning insane profits on all of it. Who cares?
Yeah, it dissolves in the washer and dryer within.
They don't make the money off the parking. That is the
McCourt Foundation.
The McCourt family.
Yeah,
the former owners of the team.
Yeah.
And final headline, some somber news. Kabosu, side-eyeing Shiba Inu, who inspired the Doge meme, dies at 18.
Is this good for the coin? Is this good for the coin?
It is sad that
the legacy.
Kabosu,
speaking of legacies.
Yeah, the legacy is now super tied to that shitty cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. Kabosu, who is a girl, I'm just learning this. Mm-hmm. But the owner of Kabosu never, ever never made a fucking cent off of her dog. Mm-hmm. Had I'm assuming just numerous opportunities to do so, in the same way that like fucking Grumpy Cat and all those early internet animals did, and she refused. And so I'm sure she probably didn't really like the Dogecoin thing
I would assume
at all either.
Wait, this is worth $1 trillion?
Yeah, but yeah, I've been following the Twitter account for this dog for years. It's been in bad shape for a while. I'm pretty sure it was blind and deaf and crippled. Owner was just sort of carrying it around.
Are there any more influencer animals out there? Was it kind of just that you had to be on the ground floor kind of thing?
Yeah, I think at this point, I follow a lot of specific dogs on Instagram, but none of them are like at that level. Mm-hmm. Like they're all famous in their own right, but only among people who would follow that kind of content. Whereas in the past, like those online animals, everyone knew Grumpy Cat.
Like Lil Bub's dead too, right?
Yeah, that was early on.
Well, so this might be one of the last of that era.
Yeah. Now they're all on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge doing memes together.
I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you at the Mashable house, which I'm sure I'm sure they extended the offer, but the owner probably said no, too far.
Yeah.
Oh well. Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
Yeah, real sad. Maybe justice will have its due, and there will be a statue in Japan soon.
Yeah, they love putting up dog statues.
Yeah, because they're good boys or girls. Yeah. That's right. Anyways, that's it for this week's episode of Weekly Weird News. We had so much more for you to watch this week, but first, if you forgot to click the like button, do it now.
Come on.
Comment your favorite influencer animals that are still alive down in the comments below. And click the join button, hit the thank button. Just do whatever you want, but engage with the content in some way. And if you missed it, we got Ticketmaster potentially getting broken up, Ticketmaster and Live Nation.
Yeah, and Google's AI being fucking garbage.
Oh my God, because it's gotten so big online, people are posting some of the most insane results. Like the craziest results from Google are still being crowdsourced.
Yep.
So just on Twitter right now, it's amazing. But so we have that episode where we go over some of those, and we also have Scarlett Johansson being very justifiably upset at GPT.
GPT 4.0, yeah.
Check out those videos, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now you take some. The enemy is taking Zone A.
Speaking of, I would say, hypocrisy on this particular topic, you guys remember the anti-war candidate, Tulsi Gabbard? Remember her?
Oh.
I don't know where she's been, actually. She's supposed to have a big show on X, right? Maybe she's got it and no one's talking about it. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, she's actually on Christian Broadcasting Network. I don't know, because what's amazing here is we looked at the betting odds on Odds Checker the other day for who Trump's VP selection will be, and she, I think, has the second or third best odds, shockingly.
No, boo.
No
okay, I'm taking that bet. Okay, whose money am I taking? What crypto bro online wants to get? Just send the Bitcoin right to my wallet. I'll figure out how to use it.
She's going on CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, because literally she's like, oh shoot, I am somebody who is not of the Christian faith. I am a part of like a Hindu nationalist movement and a weird cult started by a guy named Chris Butler, who also had many of the members as a part of my campaign staff. I mean, look away, don't wear it. It's not weird at all.
It's not an anti-gay cult.
Yeah, anti-gay and anti-Muslim cult, by the way, because there's actually been two things that have been consistent in Tulsi Gabbard's political career. She doesn't like gay people, and she does not like Muslim people. And I think that latter one is actually the most consistent thing that she's ever expressed. But she has to go on Christian Broadcasting Network because she wants to appeal to the God Squad so that Donald Trump selects her. That's not going to happen. But this is her attempt. And as I said at the start, she tried to brand herself in the Democratic Party as the anti-war candidate. But she is really not in any way challenging Israel's genocide, and also has some other contradictory positions. But here we go.
Posed with the foreign policy challenge without thinking through what is the cost going to be? What is our objective? Does this actually serve the best interest of our country, of our national security, of our economy, the well-being of the American people? Their emotional knee-jerk reaction is like, well, we've just got to go drop some bombs, or we've got to go punish this bad guy, or we've got to go and topple this dictator of this country. So short-sighted, and as we've seen over the last 20-plus years, so often over and over end up putting us in a position where it has undermined our own national security interests and come at the cost of countless lives and American taxpayer dollars. We must exhaust all diplomatic means and measures to deal with these challenges that we face, and they are unique, and there are many on the foreign policy front, recognizing war must be the last resort, and that these decisions must always be made within the context of what is in the best interest of the American people in our country.
You mentioned American taxpayer dollars. Is there a difference between funding Israel and funding Ukraine? Like, how do you see that exactly?
Great question.
I'm just curious about that.
Yes, there's a
because
very clear
radical
difference.
Islamic extremism is what Israel is on the front lines of every day.
Never mind, Matt.
Oh my God!
Wait, hold on. Pause it for a second.
Yeah, I want to hear her. But, oh my God, that was.
Always be made within the context of what is in the best interest of the American people in our country.
You mentioned American taxpayer dollars. Is there a difference between funding Israel and funding Ukraine? Like, how do you see that exactly?
Great question.
I'm just curious about that.
Yes, there's a
because
very clear
radical
difference.
Islamic extremism is what Israel is on the front lines of every day.
Never mind, Matt.
Oh my God!
Wait, hold on. Pause it for a second.
Yeah, I want to hear her. But, oh my God, that was. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Total tease. You
Yeah.
thought he was getting somewhere actually rational, but remember that this is Christian Broadcasting Network, which appeals to evangelicals who need all the Jews to return to Israel so a majority of them can get sent to hell and Jesus can come back. That is their vision for what Israel would represents for them, their messianic psychotic.
I want to declare a victory that they even have to say this, though. Yeah. And just, encourage anyone in the sort of fundamentalist circles to really wonder why we are giving billions every single goddamn year to this country.
I just go back 10 seconds if you don't mind.
Difference between funding Israel and funding Ukraine? Like, how do you see that exactly? I'm just curious about that.
Yes, there's a
because
very clear
radical
difference.
Islamic extremism is what Israel is on the front lines of every day.
There is a very real difference, and using
Why'd they go there?
And there will always be with every unique challenge that we face and that unique decision that must be made. Using those two examples, are we better off increasing and escalating tensions and waging this proxy war against Russia, of which Ukraine has never had any shot at winning, increasing the likelihood of nuclear war? That is counter to and undermining our own national security. What to speak of the fact that we've spent hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars now for what purpose? For what purpose? Putin was wrong to invade Ukraine. There's no question about it. There's a lot of historical context that went into that, but the bottom line is we should have had a president who would have gone in very early and negotiated a peaceful end to that war as quickly as possible. Save lives, save American taxpayer dollars. When you look at what's happening in the war between Israel and Hamas, and it is a war between Israel and Hamas, a radical Islamist terrorist group.
That's too much.
This is just the latest front of this war that's been waged for a very long time between these radical Islamist terrorist groups that have been waging it militarily and ideologically. This is in our best interests, as well as all freedom-loving countries and civilization, to take on what is the greatest short and long-term threat to freedom.
And yet, Joe Biden just recently pausing weapon shipments to Israel. How do you see that? I mean, there are folks that say he's on the side of Hamas at this point.
He is acting out of fear, which is why he has failed, like previous administrations before him, to wage this counter-ideological warfare against this Islamist ideology whose goal is to establish Islamic rule over the entire world, even with what's happening in our college campuses, even knowing that this is Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, this is their objective. He refuses to call it out for what it is because he's afraid of being called an Islamophobe. And it's the same reason why he is not taking seriously the need to defeat Hamas and creating a policy that really, frankly, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
No, just the second you conflate what's happening in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Israel and Palestine as a whole with like the same sort of, I guess, like religious, ideologically based, like things that we're used to hearing about from like ISIS, for example. The second you conflate those two, you right away are basically saying, I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about, because this is not what this is about at all. And it quite frankly never has been. There's a reason why that, then this is why it's always been so funny to see Israel be like, oh, is Hamas, with their early ads in this most recent conflict, their bombing and airstriking and genocide in Gaza, where like, oh, is Hamas building tunnels to America next? And it's like, well, no, because that's actually never been like
I wish.
Like
have them dig a new subway line in New York City.
That would be nice.
Right, yeah. But
dig away, Hamas.
Like, you could argue over the years there have been terrorist groups that had this idea to take out, to have terrorism in Western countries to as retribution or wage this ideological warfare she's talking about.
Why would they possibly be mad at us? What did we ever do?
Right. But even Hamas is not that. Like even Hamas.
No. Well, okay, 9/11 objectively was a terrorist attack, right? Like if we're looking at the definition of terrorism, that was a terrorist attack. That is not the context in which Israel and Palestine exists. Gaza is an open-air prison. The West Bank is a ghetto where the government of Israel also controls like much of their taxation and the money that goes to the Palestinian Authority. One of the top stories today was that in retaliation for Ireland and Spain and Norway recognizing a Palestinian state, Smotrich and the other extremists in the Netanyahu government are cutting off money that would go to the Palestinian Authority. And I just want to ask, like the New York Times, when they phrase that question, why is it the case that Israel can cut off money that's going to this supposedly sovereign government in the West Bank? It's definitely not a puppet organization or anything like that. But putting that aside for a second, like to your point, Binder, they have to, this is just Israeli propaganda, make it seem like they're coming for you next. And Hamas is connected to ISIS. Hamas is connected to Al-Qaeda. All the scary Arabs that were coming after you after 9/11 is also Hamas, as opposed to another kind of propped up organization under Israel's control, basically, because they funnel money through it and have allowed Qatar to send money to Hamas throughout all these years so they could keep calling them terrorists. A puppet or an organization that Israel finds convenient so that they continue to deprive Palestinians of their rights. And so when she talks about it being an Islamist ideology, it just gives away how this is just incredibly racist. And it's about demonizing over a billion people, billions of people in this world as inherently like savage or barbaric and coming for you. And it's just a way to make Zionism more palatable for people who are already primed to be racist towards Muslim people.
Yeah,
this is all she's ever done too. This is what she was doing against Obama in saying Obama won't say radical Islamic terror. It's just maybe brain dead, like Jimmy Dore viewers who might be surprised that she's doing this.
And one sec, Brandon, just to put this up really quickly though, like this is her and Rabbi Shmuley. Okay, so people may see this guy as the most hysterical Zionist in the world.
And this is not the only picture she's taken with him.
I think there are Zionists who don't even like Rabbi Shmuley.
Right. They have a relationship that goes back because she, during her time as a Democratic congresswoman, was doing and going to fundraisers put on by Sheldon Adelson, who was one of the, before he died, one of the biggest Zionist kind of funders in this country. She's been a pro-Israel hawk since the outset of her time in Congress, and that's because primarily her goal is like more Muslim people should die.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say it's also, also to serve the purpose of framing the Israeli government as though they're rational actors acting in the rational interest of the West, broadly speaking, and America specifically, and not a religious ethno-state acting irrationally as a result of that. Because, I'm no fan of Russia, but it at this point seems more likely that a state like Israel, a religious ethno-state run by another madman who was afraid of being thrown out of office if war ever ended, might also be willing to escalate towards nuclear war, and as well as further destabilizing the Middle East by hitting the countries that surround them. It's insane to frame Israel as though it's acting in a measured or considerate manner when every day we see them doing things that would, cause the entire region to descend into anarchy.
Yeah, I mean, the things they're considering is the Go ahead, Bitter.
You don't think it's fair to be involved in a conflict in Gaza, but then also just randomly decide to airstrike Lebanon and Syria and
they're on the front lines against savagery, Bender. It's on the front lines against savages.
This is the white man's burden.
I did notice, by the way, that she says like to absolve Putin. She mentions in like when she's talking about Ukraine and Russia, she's like, and I think that Putin's wrong for invading Ukraine, but there's a lot of historical context there. And then she goes to talks about Hamas and Israel, and she also brings up, but in the complete opposite way, she's like, listen, you have to understand there's a lot of historical context there. It's just a complete misrepresentation of exactly what's going on in a very sneaky way.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, it's just a good lesson, I think, for people not to fall for just generalized anti-war language that doesn't actually talk about the structural issues at play here, about colonialism, about American empire. She fooled some people into thinking that she was actually genuinely anti-war. I didn't fully understand that once more information came out, but yeah, she's just a bigot, and that's the reality of the situation.
And this was always going to be obvious that a lot of these anti-war people, whether it's like Rand Paul or people like that, they support Israel 100%.
To be fair to people who fell for stuff like this, not me, I did not fall for that. I just thought she was a meme candidate, so I didn't really look too far into her. The lack of real anti-war voices, or the general lack of real anti-war voices, even amongst the Democratic Party, is what gives room to people like this to come in with their incredibly shallow, mostly just isolationist views on war and find purchase in people's head who otherwise feel as though there is just no other option. Now, I don't think that was a lot of her base. I know I get a lot of flack for thinking a lot of her base were just horny libertarian bros online who like those mom yoga videos. No offense. Yeah, but generally speaking, there are a few people who being very generous, might feel so strongly about the American imperialist project and the need to end it that any port in a storm would seem better than your run-of-the-mill candidate who is just saying we gotta keep having endless shadow wars in Africa, even though she'd be in favor of those too. Wasn't she also at some point
she was there, she was in the shadow wars in Africa. She was in the shadows.
I think literally a year ago she got reassigned and to do special operations or psychological operations or something there. I mean, she's literally
psychological ops, and
see, for me,
a deep state military plant.
Yeah.
For me, I got like I was never a fan of hers. I still don't understand where the anti-war Tulsi thing came from. But she did something in the very beginning when nobody even knew who she was. You know, outside of I guess like establishment Democratic politics. When in 2016 there was a whole big media splash when she, in her position as like a vice president of the DNC or something, stepped down to support Bernie, saying she could not do that as part of the DNC. And, you know, that was maybe the only interesting strategy I saw from her where she truly did something that could fool people potentially. But after that, I don't get where the anti-war thing came from at all.
Well, that just proves that Bernie and Trump are the same, or were the same, or whatever, because she tried to become vice president.
It was basically pretty clearly her way of like the people misinterpreted it as an establishment Democrat turning progressive, but no, in reality it was a blue dog Democrat who is unhappy with the DNC from an even further right-wing perspective and decided to use the left-wing candidate as a jump-off way to get some sort of media attention.
Yeah. Like, she came out against unpopular wars because it was cheap to do, but her actual criticism hasn't been against war. It's been just we need to fight it smarter and more covertly.
Even Trump came out.
Like her position is just another way. Is like she's saying America first without saying America first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
It's called Fun Time, and Fun Time should not be allowed. Their fun time should have been reading like these guys are doing, but like reading more theory. And being a socialist implies that you cannot have fun. Fun time is bourgeois decadence. You must always be angry. I remember a few years back, you told the European chatters to keep an eye out on how their countries will slowly become like the USA in regards to their shift right in politics. Yes. Except those European chatters are probably no longer with us because they also shifted right, especially after the incredibly militant attitude that people had once Russia unjustifiably invaded Ukraine. I suspect that many of those centrist, center-right, or maybe liberal German chatters and maybe liberal European chatters became so invested in the NATO conversation that they could not recognize that their perspective was slowly but surely shifting. This, of course, is not new. Sweden has been doing this for quite a while. Many other European nations have been shifting rightward for quite a while. And unfortunately, plenty of those European EU chatters probably left and now unironically talk about how like my kind of politics is genuinely way scarier than like the Nazi sentiment expressed by whatever version of like far right radicalism that occurs on in their own countries.
Spy chief has told the BBC that the far-right Alternative for Deutschland party poses a risk to the roots of democracy. The AfD regularly rejects accusations of extremism, but the BBC has found clear links between significant party figures and extremists or even former neo-Nazi networks by investigating just one event held in the East German city of Cottbus. Our Berlin correspondent Jessica Parker has this report.
Germany's east, the far-right Alternative for Deutschland is popular, even aiming for power. And Jean-Pascal Homme is a regional parliamentary candidate.
The AfD is proactive on social media, but also on the ground, and it feeds this idea they want to promote that they are of the people taking on the establishment.
But, as the BBC has found, Jean-Pascal Homme's held links with several groups now classed by domestic intelligence as extremist, networks accused of anti-migrant, anti-Muslim ideology.
Alle genannten Organisationen.
All these organizations focus on one subject, the theme of our times. It is the population replacement going on in Germany and in Europe. To voice that and to fight that politically is not extremist.
You don't think the Great Replacement theory is extremist? I mean, it's a far-right conspiracy theory.
Nein, der große Austausch findet statt. Das sehe ich in meiner
No, the great replacement is happening. I can see that in my own city. I do not say it is organized from up high. I say it's happening.
It was at this office back in March that Jean-Pascal Homme helped organise an event. The speaker was an MP called Matthias Helfferich, who once described himself as the friendly face of National Socialism, also known as Nazism.
Matthias Helfferich insists the years-old leaked messages were satire. His talk here in Cottbus was on remigration, a code word, say many, for mass deportations.
Remigration ist die politische Vision einer vertrauten Heimat.
In this video, he talks about remigrating millions to preserve the land of the Germans.
Und aktivistischen Vorfeld.
In the audience in Cottbus that night was Benedikt Kaiser, another influential figure. He works for an AfD MP. But over a decade ago, Mr. Kaiser was pictured at neo-Nazi demos. We've approached him for comment.
Became more and more right-wing extremists.
This spy chief claims that extremism within the AfD poses a risk to democracy.
When I'm speaking about a German oak, big, strong, old tree, it can take a blizzard, it can take a storm. But once you have an enemy that goes for the roots, and that's exactly what's happening right now, going for the roots of our democracy, it's very dangerous because it goes to the vital parts of our democracy.
What is it about the 20s and 30s and centuries that fascism just loves to go full mask off? I mean, it's a cycle, right? It takes 100 years for this level of resentment to build up once again.
The AfD says it's being smeared by a biased establishment. And as the country builds towards regional and EU elections, this isn't a fringe movement, but one trying to go mainstream. Jessica Parker, BBC News in Brandenburg.
Let's speak to Assistant Professor of Political Science at Boise State University.
Where are Roaring 20s? Bro, what do you think the Roaring 20s meant for the average working class person? It's look around, dude. The Roaring 20s, in the way that it's like mentioned in The Great Gatsby and the like, was roaring for the elites. As it is currently, you know, just wasn't exactly great for the average person.
University, Julia Van Dusky. Julia, welcome to you. You've written about the rise of the AfD in Germany, haven't you? How?
Yeah, mega yacht sales are looking better than ever. You know what I mean? Shit's popping. Entire industries specifically dedicated to serving the wealthiest individuals in society. Meanwhile, the average person can't purchase a house, has no meaningful way of creating permanent shelter for themselves.
Far-reaching are its links with the far right, would you say?
So the German government has been investigating the AfD for quite a while because it is known that many of its members do have links to the far right. So it is far-reaching.
Now the far right.
Yeah, we're literally doing space tourism and shit. Like, think about that. Likely through populism on TikTok, etc., young people are faster prone to become far right. AfD's in second place for young people. No, I don't think it's populism from TikTok. I think it's economic instability and volatility. I am never going to look at like one singular social media platform. No, these are far larger issues. There are far larger systematic problems that are creating the exact same results. It's austerity. It's austerity. It's the horrifying material conditions, a lack of future prospects for the younger generation that's breaking their minds. And because of neoliberalism's power, specifically specifically gutting and eviscerating any kind of leftist opposition, there isn't even like a genuine communist counter nor even a trade unionist one, nor even a socialist one, as it existed in at least the earlier stages in the aftermath of the Industrial Revolution, where there was one. Volodymyr Zelensky said, "Why is the upper class supporting this then?" Well, it's one should ask that same question about what the upper class was doing supporting it in the 20s, both in the United States of America and in Germany. Capital owners absolutely funded and facilitated fascism. Fascist plots were occurring both in America and also in Germany as well, as you know. And the reason for that was because fascism is seen as a way to instill order. It's a way to reinforce the exact same. It's a way to reinforce the hierarchies by very violent means in general. Capitalism decays inevitably due to the weight of its own contradictions, and then when in that decay, there's a lot of volatility, a lot of instability. Then there's also even the pesky alternatives to said instability, people that want to evolve from capitalism to something that is a little bit more just. And capital owners obviously benefit from the existing hierarchies. So what do? Well, they side with the fascists. They fund the fascists, because what do fascists do? They're not real socialists. They're not genuinely interested in class struggle. They're interested in stopping class struggle. Yes, yesterday a video went viral with upper class kids chanting xenophobic slurs. I know, that's how we started this conversation.
The AfD, rather, political party, is gaining in popularity, isn't it, in Germany? What would you put that down to?
So, the AfD originally formed as a response to the Eurozone crisis. There are a lot of Germans who do not support the EU, and they don't support Germany's role in the EU, and so now there's a party that represents their interests. They're more popular in East Germany amongst older people who had been socialized under a completely different political system. They lived under communism, an authoritarian regime. So politically, they're a little bit different than West Germans, so it's not surprising that the AfD is a little bit more popular there.
And what do you think it means for the future democracy of Germany, or would that be alarmist to even go there?
What a phenomenally stupid liberal analysis of the situation. I wonder why East Germany would be more susceptible to right-wing populism like this. Oh, I'm sure it's because they grew up under communism. No, perhaps it has something to do with the fact that the material development of East Germany was stunted deliberately in comparison to West Germany. That was beefed up by both the Marshall Plan and American investment. That's it. The reasons as to why there is more reactionary sentiment in East Germany is because East Germany was left behind. This is also false. They're most popular among the population that grew up in the aftermath of the reunification, born around 85, 95.
Currently, I don't think the AfD is going anywhere. However, I don't think they're big.
So capitalism brought wealth and communism brought poverty? Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Enough currently to ever form a government in Germany. They're still quite small. And the other parties, the mainstream parties, are unlikely to form a government with them. So in the short term, they can make a lot of noise. They have a platform in parliament, but I don't think they're going to have a lot of influence over policymaking.
Okay, Professor Julie Van Dusky, thank you very much.
Only recently, Olaf Scholz was on the cover of Der Spiegel with the quote, "We must finally start to deport in a big fashion." I wonder how saying that shit became more mainstream. Yup. The West will do liberal shock therapy to former communist areas and then blame communism when that shock therapy plays its course. Yes. It's funny, the thing that apparently the girl we saw in the video shared a story where she wrote "Best DJ in Sult" from Palestine, and instead of the Palestine flag, she posted the flag of Kuwait. She was literally like, "Look at my foreign friend. The guy was just a DJ." Yeah. You should react to Best D-Mark's video on Weimar Germany. I have. I'm pretty sure I have. In your opinion, do you think fascism will rise and prevail without resistance? Since there's no USSR anymore, do you think, for example, China would be a nation willing to rescue the West? I don't know. I think China is very self-interested, you know? Hold on one second. I have to also look at something here. I guess the USSR was also self-interested though, in many ways. Hold up. Waiting to get in. Y'all are live. Also join. I'm waiting for my team to get in on Rust. There's a Bestie Part 2 called the Galen Organization that you didn't watch. Let's see. Leftist uprising took out many fascist regimes without outside help from the USSR. Let's see. How Nazism survived Germany. We watched How Nazism survived Germany. Organisation Gehlen. We didn't watch that part, but there was also another thing that I kind of wanted to see. The Betrayal of the German Revolution, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. This talks extensively in detail, I suspect, about the whole like liberals betraying KPD, siding with the fascists, and the rise of Nazi Germany. The Betrayal of the Revolution is what I was talking about. Is the Rust server public? No.
After World War I, Germany was on the brink of a successful proletarian revolution. For many people, this period is known merely as representing a change from the German monarchy to the Weimar Republic. In fact, most people are not even aware that there was a revolution at all. There are videos on the internet about this topic, but there is little deeper analysis of the political forces that were crucial in not only determining the future of Germany, but the future of Europe, and arguably the future of the whole world. Chris Harman says that without understanding this period, one can have but an incomplete understanding of the rise of Adolf Hitler and the massacre of World War II. It is in these years that the swastika entered the political stage as a symbol of reaction, anti-communism, and counter-revolution. It is quite reasonable to hypothesize that if the, at the time, world's second most powerful industrial nation had turned socialist, the rising workers' movement all over Europe could have had a powerful ally to bring about socialism in their own countries, adding to the massive revolutionary flame that had been ignited in Russia. Russia was a relatively backward country in terms of industrial development. The Bolshevik revolutionaries were hoping and even expecting the victory in Germany as a result of a chain reaction, which would benefit them as it wouldn't leave them isolated on the international stage. Their leader, Vladimir Lenin, declared only months after the successful October Revolution in 1917 that, quote, "Without the revolution in Germany, we are doomed." Since the communist movement fundamentally hinges on the unity of the international working class, it would have been of
what could have been, chatters,
massive benefit to have an industrially developed socialist ally to support the construction of socialism in Russia.
To be fair, we don't know. We don't know what Europe would look like. There could have been a battle line drawn where internal pressures might have escalated against FDR. Maybe the business plot succeeds in that circumstance. Maybe FDR never, maybe the New Deal never occurs. And America is the continuation led by the American Bund movement. Maybe America is the continuation of fascist autocracy, and they try to fight and plunder the rest of the world. And the United States becomes the Germany of World War II. So there's also that aspect of it as well. America turned fascist? No, I mean, America was aligned against the fascists in World War II. But as I say, all the time, as I like reiterating all the time, things could have been very different for America.
And likewise, it was the Great October Revolution that massively accelerated and supported the establishment of councils all over Hungary, Austria, or Germany. Quote, "We shall achieve victory only together with all the workers of other countries of the whole world," Lenin stated later in April 1918. Defeated revolutions are quickly forgotten, yet from the perspective of the working class, this revolution should not be brushed aside. There is not only lots of lessons to be drawn from this period, but it is immensely inspiring to have history reaffirm that workers' power in Europe is possible despite the sheer strength of the capitalist class.
There are way more Germans who hate Nazis than Nazis. Please acknowledge that, brother. I'm talking about, and this video is detailing something that you are, I think, unable to understand, perhaps as a German person yourself. We're talking about German liberalism and how it made way for the Nazi movement, how it actually developed momentum for the Nazi movement. This entire video is directly about all of those people who ostensibly now hate the Nazis, because the exact same attitude is growing. The exact same sentiment is growing in Germany at this moment. We're looking at history in order not to repeat its mistakes, but you are, it seems, unable to understand that and are literally saying, no, we will repeat those mistakes actually, and you will shut the fuck up about it, as we are in the process of repeating said mistakes in Germany.
It is this explosive potential of revolutionary inspiration that is among the reasons the history of the German Revolution is twisted or straight up denied. Quote, a German revolution after World War I? A West German undergraduate in my German history survey indicated she had never heard of such a thing, and until the 1960s, the same was probably true of most Western academics, said Robert Wheeler in the late 70s. Winston Churchill derided it by claiming it was part of a Jewish conspiracy. Of course, other liberal commentators state that it was in this period that democracy won against dictatorship. Another reason this revolution is not mentioned very often is that it is a period of great shame for these supposedly progressive liberal forces, since it showed how they had zero concerns about collaborating with the most reactionary and bloodthirsty elements of society in crushing the movements that endanger the capitalist system. In Germany, the party mainly responsible for that cooperation, the SPD, has been one of the main ruling forces in the German government ever since, now claiming the chancellor position with Olaf Scholz since 2021. The story of the German Revolution is the story of how that party evolved from the, at the time, most developed Marxist organization to an open representative of capitalism, a supporter of imperialist war and a defender of class society. It is thus key in understanding today's left and the nominally left social democratic parties, since what had become concrete during this revolution isn't just important for grasping the politics of Germany, but in understanding the revising of Marxist principles and their subordination to the bourgeoisie as an international trend. This video will encompass the build-up to the revolution, without which it is impossible to grasp the underlying political forces that led to it and that ultimately betrayed it. In fact, the betrayal had begun long before the start of the revolution. It's the story of the definite split between social democracy and communism, which would forever shape the socialist movement. In the next part that I'll release within the next few days, we'll talk about the events of the German Revolution and how that split manifested. The content of this part is especially topical, since it enlightens the struggles within the so-called left about the correct Marxist position during imperialist aggression, considering the current war in Ukraine and the danger of escalation into a new world war. Everyone interested in ending capitalism, in Marxism or socialism must learn about this period. This video will be mainly based on these works. They have all their particular biases I don't agree with, so I have tried to synthesize all of those different perspectives while adding a bit of my own analysis. The German state is a fairly recent formation. For multiple centuries, Germany referred to a group of various German-speaking states in Central Europe. They were often very divided and subject to the influence of far greater empires. Most people in these states didn't identify as Germans, but as Prussians, Bavarians, or Saxons. Unlike in France or in other European states, Germany had not managed to overthrow the monarchy. In 1848, inspired by the revolutions in France and elsewhere, the masses in the German states attempted to do the same. One of their goals was to achieve unity. By the end of 1849, however, the revolts were crushed. The German bourgeoisie failed to unite the various German states, not just because it was weaker than France's, but under the threat of a strong proletarian movement, it preferred to ally itself with the monarchic forces. It's not the last time we would see this alliance against the working class in Germany. The structures of the monarchy persevered, but they adapted themselves to serve the needs of the quickly growing business class. Eventually, in 1871, unity.
This is like the first iteration of the welfare state and the development of the welfare state in an effort to continue, I guess, under a monarchy, monarchical structure. There were like social benefits that basically gave life a extension to the continuation of the same the same exact structures that abuse the working class in an effort to retain the wealth in the hands of the few.
It was achieved at the end of the Franco-Prussian War, which had also sparked the creation of the Paris Commune, the first workers' state. Bourgeois historians often praise the prowess of Otto von Bismarck for achieving unity and for being the founder of the modern welfare state. But the unification into the German state manifested as a result of various complex developments. Unity served the needs of the rising bourgeoisie, and especially of the ruling classes in Prussia, who now dominated the newly formed federation.
This is why one analysis, I mean, I wouldn't even say one analysis, but like a direct analysis of like welfare capitalism is, from a Marxist perspective, is that welfare capitalism is a nefarious way in which you marginally improve working class conditions in an effort to not starve them to a degree that they rise up and destroy the capitalist mode of production. And there is truth to that matter. It's without welfare reforms, the idea is that capitalism is crushed under the weight of its own contradictions.
Prussia containing more than half of the population and most of natural resources. And the establishment of a welfare state wasn't simply out of a concern for the working class. Prussia's king was now also the German emperor, which was Wilhelm I of Prussia, from the imperial house of Hohenzollern. The other states had their own kings or grand dukes. Each state had their own version of governance, with Württemberg even adopting universal suffrage. The imperial government was responsible for policy regarding the whole country, such as the navy, commerce, and foreign relations. The emperor delegated those matters to the imperial chancellor, which was Otto von Bismarck. The chancellor title is still in use in Germany for the head of government today. This unified German state now quickly transformed itself into the second greatest industrial power in the world, even overtaking Great Britain, and thus creating a large working class within a short period of time. Concessions were made to the petty bourgeoisie and some minor ones to the working class, both as a byproduct and political convenience of the rising German capitalism. But the state continued to be ruled by the Prussian landowning aristocracy, the so-called Junkers, of which Otto von Bismarck was the most prominent. These ruling classes weren't subject to the Reichstag, the empire's parliament, chosen by male suffrage and with little to no actual power, and which ultimately answered to the emperor. Most of the liberal middle classes had been won over by the monarchist National Liberal Party. Bismarck had used the interests of the bourgeoisie to advance German industry and the interests of the upper middle classes to consolidate the new bourgeois hierarchy. Those concessions were not irrelevant. Within the first 10 years, life expectancy rose by over 10 years, and 12-hour working days became 10-hour days.
You can also look at like somewhat. You can find similarities within another. I mean, I'm not talking about Bismarck here, but like obviously fascists in America, capital-owning fascists in America, like Henry Ford, also recognize the many benefits and the improvements in productivity that he would see out of his workers when he streamlined some of these processes in his own factories as well. So the irony, of course, is that like the consistent rent-seeking and consistent profit-maxing attitude that our capital owners have now actually leads to less productive results down the line. So even now, if we were to have more benefits in the direction of a true social democracy in the United States of America, we could actually legitimately improve productivity, but it's not even a thing that people consider nowadays because of short-term thinking.
Bismarck established the first welfare state in modern industrial society. The main goal was to gain working class support by directing it away from the rapidly growing socialist opposition. Social democracy today refers to something entirely different than what it used to in the 19th century. People of the revolutionary left used to call themselves social democrats, such as Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht of Germany, or Vladimir Lenin. The Bolsheviks were part of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, which was firmly based on the theories of Marx and Engels. The biggest social democratic party at the time was the Social Democratic Party of Germany, or the SPD. Lenin, up until the beginning of the 20th century, praised the SPD as the most advanced social democratic organization, saying that German social democracy, quote, had always upheld the revolutionary standpoint in Marxism. The change in the meaning of social democracy roughly went like this. First, it meant Marxism. Then, it meant socialism, but through
Desperate for pussy voice. Desperate for pussy voice, Lenin. Social democracy in Germany is really cool. I love Rosa.
reform, not revolution. And today it means capitalism with stronger social safety nets, or the so-called Nordic model, what they have in Sweden, for instance. In order to understand how this shift in definition happened, it is essential to learn about the history of the SPD and the German Revolution. In the period before the German unification, German social democracy was split into two currents. There were the Lassallians, who followed the teachings of the more reformist Ferdinand Lassalle, and the so-called Eisenachers, who claimed to uphold the teachings of Marx and Engels. The two most prominent Eisenachers were August Bebel and Wilhelm Liebknecht. They were the leaders of the Social Democratic Workers' Party of Germany, the SDAP, founded in 1869 in the German town Eisenach, hence the label Eisenachers. The two groups were very divided. When Bebel and Liebknecht refused to vote for war credits for the war against France in 1870, the Lassallians suggested they should be jailed for their opposition to the war. However, a few years later, after the unification had happened, members of the two groups urged the unification of German social democracy. In 1875, in the German city Gotha, the two factions managed to come together by adopting the Gotha program, the party platform of the SPD. At the time, Marx and Engels were heavy influences on the party leadership. They had become the most influential intellectual leaders of the socialist movement. Wilhelm Liebknecht, for instance, had developed a strong friendship with Marx and collaborated with him throughout his life. Marx and Engels weren't big fans of the Gotha program, however. Marx wrote the Critique of the Gotha program and sent it to the leadership of the SDAP. The program was criticized for its concessions to the Lassallian current, such as reformist deviations from revolutionary Marxist theory or the faulty analysis of German society, among other things. The document is now part of the Marxist classics. It discusses the importance of proletarian internationalism or the dictatorship of the proletariat. There are still many attempts to separate those two concepts from Marxist theory today. Although not entirely united in ideology and overall tactics, the party grew very quickly. A mere 2 years later, the party boasted close to 500,000 votes, which was over 9% of the total. The SPD became involved in nearly all aspects of society. It established countless trade unions, cooperatives, youth and women's organizations, or newspapers. The SPD was by far the biggest working class organization worldwide. Lenin said about the German working class that for almost half a century, it was, quote, the model of socialist organization for the whole world. German social democracy became a way of life, being involved not just during labor struggles and elections, but in people's leisure time. They established and became affiliated with chess clubs, a swimming association, the Free Sailing Union, cyclist magazines, music.
See, it fell apart because of their, this is a bourgeois moral failing right here. It's called fun time, and fun time should not be allowed. Their fun time should have been reading, like these guys are doing, but like reading more communist literature, theory. Sailing, it seems like bourgeois interest to me. Being a communist and being a socialist implies that you cannot have fun, okay? Fun is not allowed. Fun time is bourgeois decadence. You must always be angry. You must always be seeking to improve the material conditions of the working class, uplift the working class. If you are having fun, that means you are not fighting the revolutionary fight. You are actually a counter-revolutionary.
And singing groups, libraries, and even a free people's theater to spread class consciousness and critiquing the status quo through drama. Lenin wrote enthusiastically about these organizations. These leisure time organizations were important for another reason. In 1878, Otto von Bismarck managed to institute laws restricting the rapid development of the workers' movement. Hence, more indirect and clandestine forms of organization and propaganda became important. Within the first year of enacting the so-called anti-socialist laws, the Imperial German government outlawed about 250 associations, as well as close to 200 periodicals and over 300 non-periodical newspapers or magazines. This crackdown did not significantly slow down the socialist movement, however. Through a kind of Barbara Streisand effect, it even led to an increased membership long-term and a raised class consciousness by making it apparent that the state viewed the socialist movement as a threat. So, many party activists reacted to state persecution by embracing Marxist revolutionary principles. In the 1880s, the party had reaffirmed that it was revolutionary.
It is a legit tactic to use treats to distract people, though, but I get what you mean. Dude, treats are great. That's the whole reason for why you want some kind of change to the current existing organization of the economy, so you can have treats and free time. That's the whole point. That is literally why I care about these sorts of things, because I want everyone to have the amenities and the fun and the free time. And so did Marx, really. This is why the idea that like socialism is actually a deeply collectivist ideology that has no basis in like individual freedoms is a inherently reactionary bastardization of why people want socialism to happen. The entire point is so that people can have fun, people can have treats, people can have luxuries, people can have whatever they wish to have.
With no illusions in parliamentary methods. However, although repression failed to destroy social democracy, it did lead a great part of the party toward a more moderate direction and opportunism. Since the laws didn't outlaw participating in the electoral theater while hurting the most radical and visible activists, August Bebel wrote in a letter to Liebknecht that a position in the Reichstag, quote, satisfies their ambition and their vanity. With great self-complacency, they look upon themselves as among the chosen of the nation and find immense pleasure in the parliamentary comedy. They take it very seriously. This had a great effect on the party membership. Revolutionary theory was only marginally connected with most of what the party actually did. Another factor adding to the complacency of many social democrats was the success and the...
Yeah, but prioritizing fun is unhelpful. That's how liberalism happens. You have to be joking. You cannot be serious right now. I don't believe that you're being serious. I'm going to assume that you're joking.
Relative stability of emerging German capitalism and minor concessions to the working class. Although behind many of these achievements was the working class struggle, not parliamentary activity.
Guys, stop saying Rust, all this stuff, okay? I'm gonna get into Rust when my team is ready, okay? None of them are ready right now. What do you want me to do? Do it on my own? No, I'm waiting for my team.
What was crucial was
I'm gonna eat, we're gonna watch this, and then I'm gonna play Rust.
That capitalism had entered a new stage at the turn of the century, its highest and last stage according to Lenin, imperialism. In addition to the profits appropriated in their own countries, the monopoly capitalists now increasingly appropriated so-called super profits from the colonies and semi-colonies. Capitalists in the imperialist countries could now use those extra profits to, quote, bribe, unquote, the working classes in their own states, leading to higher wages for a section of the working class, which came to be called the labor aristocracy. For instance, well-paid managers, bankers, or engineers. Though still part of the working class, many of these people see themselves as superior in social status, weakening class solidarity. It is this social stratum, Lenin says, that became the basis of various social democratic parties in Europe. He wrote, quote, this stratum of workers turned bourgeois, or the labor aristocracy, who are quite Philistine in their mode of life, in the size of their earnings and in their entire outlook, is the principal prop of the Second International, and in our days, the principal social prop of the bourgeoisie, for they are the real agents of the bourgeoisie and the working class movement, the labor lieutenants of the capitalist class, real vehicles of reformism and chauvinism. In the civil war between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, they inevitably, and in no small numbers, take the side of the bourgeoisie. This was also reflected in the composition of party leadership that became increasingly dominated by so-called high-skilled professionals or small business owners. This and the relative peace in Europe nourished complacency.
Would you characterize the HVAC business owners as labor aristocracy? No. HVAC business owners would be firmly petty bourgeoisie. Small business owners are in the petty bourgeoisie camp. They are capital owners. Their earnings are obviously marginal in comparison to big business, but ultimately they themselves still hire labor. They are a part. Sometimes they literally work as well. In many instances, they work as well, but they are petite, tiny, small business owners, but their revenue growth and their wealth relies on still relies on hiring other workers. So ultimately, they are still very much aligned in class interests with larger business owners. Labor aristocrats, on the other hand, would be the professional managerial class, doctors, engineers, lawyers, and the like.
And the belief that maybe incrementalism was the way forward. However, we need to keep in mind that higher wages under capitalism does not mean lower exploitation. Shorter working hours usually go along with higher intensity of work under capitalism. The progress in productivity meant that wages could be improved in absolute terms, but in relative terms, exploitation increased. This means that while wages increased a little bit, they didn't keep up with the increased productivity, which overwhelmingly benefited the income of capitalists. As one economic historian explains, the, quote, relative income of the workers in 1914 was only about 1/3 of what it was in 1860. The rich had become enormously richer and the national wealth of Germany had grown, but the workers' share in this wealth had declined rapidly. The relative deterioration of the workers had proceeded at a speed probably unsurpassed in any country in Europe. But it takes political consciousness to understand this. The great majority could obviously be fooled by the dominant narrative, just like today. Many radicals who came back to Germany from their fleeing from the anti-socialist laws had lost their revolutionary fervor, and one of them...
Your average defense attorney that does like family law or criminal law for people do not make that much, just throwing that out there. Okay, one thing to remember is that, like, Engels is directly a factory owner, okay? It doesn't change the dynamic in his advocacy in any meaningful capacity. You can literally be, in certain instances, a capital owner and still be very foundationally important in expressing revolutionary sentiment. Just like the labor aristocracy does not necessarily mean that you are going to, if you're a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, doesn't mean that you are going to ultimately align with the interests of the capital owning class, okay? It doesn't work that way at all. A lot of people immediately think like, whoa, what the f, this is call out. It's not as black and white.
Was Eduard Bernstein.
Castro was the owner of a sugar farm? Yes. Fidel Castro unironically used the military, just like everywhere else, to seize whatever the land allotment was that went beyond what the government at the time decided. I forget what the exact number is. It was like a certain number of acreage. Once you went beyond it, that meant that it would be expropriated. Castro himself literally sent his own the military to his own family's sugar farm. He expropriated land from his own family.
In 1891, the SPD adopted the Erfurt program in the German city Erfurt. It was formulated by August Bebel and two gentlemen named Karl Kautsky and the aforementioned Eduard Bernstein. Engels, who after Marx's death in 1883 was now the chief authority on Marxism, criticized this program for its non-Marxist opportunist view on the state. He wrote, quote, "The political demands of the draft have one great fault. It lacks precisely what should have been said. What was missing was the necessity of the dictatorship of the proletariat and a few other Marxist components. In order to understand Engels' criticism and the development of social democracy in general, it is important to learn about Eduard Bernstein. He was born in 1850 and had been in close connection to Marx and Engels. He became a central figure in the SPD, but he gained prominence by becoming known as the first major revisionist. Revisionism, simply put, means revising Marxist principles. It usually means to update them toward a liberal direction, for instance, making concessions to the capitalist class or collaborating with it, turning it from something revolutionary to something less combative. The relative stability of capitalism led Bernstein to believe that maybe the contradictions of capitalism wouldn't sharpen as Marx had analyzed. He also questioned the philosophical underpinnings of Marxism, dialectical materialism. He posed that socialism was not the dialectical solution of these contradictions, but it is a result of the free choice of people, that is, independent from their economic and social situation. It is more of a moral option instead of a social necessity, so to speak. His conclusion was that rather than aiming for revolution, the working class should be focused on reforms. It should sink itself into the bourgeoisie and incrementally change the system from within. His approach is most prominently reflected in his quote, "The ultimate aim of socialism is nothing, but the movement is everything." He was heavily criticized, most prominently by Rosa Luxemburg, the leading figure of the left line, who wrote the pamphlet Reform or Revolution. In it she says that the dilemma between reform and revolution is meaningless, because reforms should be in the service of revolution. Her arguments were convincing. By 1903, the debate appeared settled in the Dresden Congress.
I 100% agree with Rosa Luxemburg. All matter of reform should be in the revolutionary direction. That ultimately reforms are not an end, but a means to a more just end.
In which the majority of the party formally rejected Bernstein's revisionism. Another prominent SPD.
This still does not mean that you do not participate in an unjust system. I think people misunderstand a lot of this, where they personally, this is the difference between a lot of people who come in here and they're like, Hassan, when will you give up on bourgeois democracy, blah, 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 like electoralism, no thank you. Or people that cast aside the likes of Bernie Sanders, or people that constantly shit on any and every left-wing Democrat, hyper-focusing on them instead of the broader picture, instead of those who are truly working actively to harm the working class. Okay? It's silly for me in particular. I don't personally understand it because for me, I look at the immediate material conditions. I look at where class awareness is in this country, in the United States of America. I recognize America's placement on the planet as a hegemonic superpower that is working actively to continue unequal exchange from the global south, to continue destroying and continue fomenting reactionary sentiment everywhere and anywhere it can, having its tentacles in every aspect of global development. The idea that you can just like magically accelerate and not succumb to a fascist movement is silly. As literal socio-dem talk, Lamau. Well, I don't have an issue with social democrats in America, especially as long as they are not leaning in the direction of liberalism. A foundational social democratic principle would be literally offering some kind of universal health care for all members of American society unconditionally. We don't even have that in America, okay? The notion that you would just like immediately jump multiple steps and be like revolution now is idiotic. It doesn't work that way.
The member who criticized Bernstein was Karl Kautsky. He was born in 1854, and after the passing of Engels in 1895, now he was regarded as one of the, if not the most prestigious Marxist theoretician. He was called by many people the Pope of Marxism. Until the outbreak of World War I, Vladimir Lenin, despite many differences, regarded Kautsky as the final authority on Marxism. But for Kautsky, revolution became something that had shifted to an indefinite future. Kautsky was part of the party center, which meant that he was against Bernstein's revisionism, but also against the tactics of the left, such as when Luxemburg argued to push for mass strikes against the state after the strike wave of the early 20th century. It was the Pope of Marxism who criticized her. And it was this party center, being in seemingly equal distance from the right revisionism and the revolutionary left, that played a key role in conceding more and more to the right under the guise of not in...
Lenin literally acknowledged her analysis on reform in liberal democracies in Europe. People don't get this. People just act as if she means electoralism is the end-all be-all. It's not. She emphasizes the revolutionary Marxist party should be participants in bourgeois electoral process to instill revolutionary principles.
Endangering party unity. However, for those not fully aware of inner party struggles, German social democracy still seemed to be committed to socialist revolution. In the meantime, the day-to-day practice of the SPD was fully committed to non-revolutionary activities. The defeat in the general elections of 1907 convinced the leaders that it was the extreme left and their revolutionary phraseology that was responsible for their loss in support, a charge reminiscent of today's liberal parties. One of the core issues of that campaign was the German colonization of Southwest Africa. A large part of the party leadership came quite close to the politics of the growing pro-monarchist parties, with some even using Marxist terminology to justify national defense and even colonialism. Also reminds us of many supposed Marxists today. The right line came to increasingly dominate the social democratic organizations, especially when it came to responsibilities in fields such as finance, the newspapers, trade union leadership, and the running of election campaigns. This was reflected in the composition of party membership, which came to be increasingly dominated by proprietors of small businesses. In 1907, less than 15% of the membership was composed of those who fell under the label worker. In 1911, about 50% of the members were represented by only 27% of delegates. There was an increasing discrepancy between the leaders and the led, with the petty bourgeois section disproportionately being part of the leadership. This rightward shift culminated when Friedrich Ebert, leader of this right line, became party secretary in 1906 at the age of 36, and after the passing of August Bebel, became the chairman of the party in 1913. Ebert was known as an efficient organizer, intensely practical and cold. He would soon prove to be the chief ally of the bourgeoisie. History mainly remembers two names of the communist movement in this time in Germany. Those are Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, courageous fighters for the working class who were to be murdered in the same January night in 1919. But in truth, those two mere
domination. Rule number 6. There's always another war, another cantina, another capture zone. 3, 2, 1. Take the zones. Defend them to the end. Amigos capturing Zone C. We're taking Zone B. Capture zone is ours now. Zone's ours now. They're going after Zone C. The enemy is attacking Zone B.
EMP out.
Capture zone contested. Okay, that's enough lives for your cause. Now you take some.
Shield out. Nail that freedom.
To the hereafter. Amigos capturing Zone C. Capture zone is ours now. They're going after Zone C! Taking Zone B!
Nail that freedom.
Capture zone protected.
Condition. Critical.
What goes around? Zone contested. Zone's ours now. Bad guys on Zone C! Zone B is in danger!
Grenade out.
occupation. Capture zone is ours now. C is in trouble. Zone A is under attack. Zone compromised. What goes around, comes around.
Sticky out!
They're taking B! We're moving on B. Zone compromised. Enemy spy activated sonar goggles. Wish we had that back when I was KGB. Running out of time to turn this around, compay.
Shield out.
Oh, maybe we'll do the revolution tomorrow, eh? Domination. You can't liberate the whole world, but the capture zones are a good start. Tres, dos, uno. Take the zones! Topple the enemy! Viva la revolución! We're taking Zone A. Capture zone is ours now. Amigos capturing Zone C. Capture zone contested. We're taking Zone B. The enemy is taking Zone A. The enemy is attacking Zone B.
Help! I'm in bad shape.
We're taking Zone B. Capture zone contested.
Cover me! Deploying frag!
Capture zone is ours now. The enemy is attacking Zone B. Okay, that's enough lives for your cause. Now you take some. The enemy is taking Zone A. That's revenge. We're taking Zone B. Zone's ours now. Zone contested.
Chucking grenade!
They're moving on B. Amigos taking B. Cuidado! An enemy spy is skulking around with their goggles on. Zone contested. Zone B is in danger. For that.
Nothing cleans like...
Liberate all zones from enemy occupation. We're seizing Zone C. We're losing. This is your cue to start winning. Zone's ours now. Zone contested. Allies on B. We're losing Zone A. C's in trouble.
Swapping mags, cover me.
Wait, reload. Nothing cleans like burning.
They got all the zones. That's not great. Capture zone is ours now. Zone We're liberating A. Zone's ours now. They're moving on B.
Grenade out.
Nothing cleans like burning.
Losing B.
Swapping mags, cover me.
Grabbing B. Fought a good fight. I mean, it was an okay fight. Would have been better if you won it.
Like burning.